Mark, you're a man who must get stopped in the street and asked for a selfie. TV's Mark Stone.
Podcasts, Mark Stone. That's what it is now.
Yeah, sure, I'll take
Uh,
that.
yeah. Well, maybe once or twice. But what about you, James? In the White House grounds, no less. I hear.
Today, as it happens, a Bolivian journalist said, "I love your accent," and she wanted a selfie, which beats the guy I was at a wedding with about 18 months ago. Sat beside him for an hour and a half, and he was asking me all sorts of gossip about second division Scottish football. It was only a few pints in that he turned to me and said, "Look, I'm really sorry. I thought you were Luke Shanley of Sky Sports."
Oh, very good. I'm
um,
Mark Stone.
and I'm James Matthews. It's Friday, the 9th of May, day 109 of Trump's presidency. I've been in the Oval Office as Donald Trump confirms the UK is the first country to get a trade deal with the United States.
Yeah, it has been really quite the day, and a day of firsts, certainly, because the Catholic Church has its first American Pope. But can Donald Trump take some credit for that? Quite the day indeed at the White House, James. Maybe the only other place with more drama was St. Peter's Square.
Yeah, fewer robes and less incense at the White House, Mark, but still plenty of theatre for sure in the Oval Office today. President Trump and the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, they announced this trade agreement in a phone call. It was broadcast live to audiences on both sides of the Atlantic.
Truly one of our great allies. I mean, a lot of people say our greatest ally. I don't want to insult people by saying that, but I can say it's certainly one of our greatest, and right at the top. And they're the first one we're talking about. And by the way, we have many meetings planned today and tomorrow, and every country wants to be making deals. It's been an honor doing business with all of them, and in particular the Prime Minister. And
Now, Mark, see if you were watching that on TV. It
Mm.
actually looked quite good. Split screen, Trump on one side, Starmer on the other. Actually, Starmer, somebody said to me, he looks like the losing team in The Apprentice getting the bad news. See in the Oval Office.
You were in
Um,
there.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, front row seat. It was awkward. Trump was sitting there. You knew that Starmer was on the phone. There was a quick intro. But then Trump spoke for something like 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Keir from the West Midlands, first time caller, a bit nervous, silent, saying nothing. He's hanging on the telephone while we hang on the big reveal. So you had the president trumpeting his success, Keir Starmer
Mm.
on the penny whistle.
Yeah, we know now that he got the call halfway through the Arsenal match last night from Trump, the initial call to discuss the deal. And you did get the sense that he didn't know 24 hours earlier that he would be sitting
Yeah.
in a bland conference room at the West Midlands plant of Jaguar Land Rover talking to the US president. But the spectacle of the split screen moment was pretty remarkable. We never usually see this sort of conversation taking place in public in the way it was. But of course, this is Trump. This is his Oval Office. And my goodness, we have seen how he does things so very differently. Interesting as well that it was VE Day, the day Allied forces declared victory in Europe. And it seemed to me that Keir Starmer was very keen to draw the parallel between the two. Although
Yeah.
I don't know what you thought, but I thought it was a bit of a stretch to draw a parallel between VE Day and a sort of trade deal.
Yeah, VE Day, and of course, Winston Churchill, Trump famously a fan. He reinstated the bust of Churchill in the Oval Office when he moved back in January. It was sat behind him as he spoke about it being a war the UK and US won together, a departure from his usual American first approach, actually. That was reassuring to hear for British ears. But that was the vibe of the call, very much backslapping, teamwork, friendship, first name terms. It was all Donald, hello, Keir. Spoke of the close and cherished relationship between the US and UK.
Yeah, some James might say that Keir Starmer has nailed the art of sycophancy. I mean, we remember what he was like when he revealed the letter from the King in the Oval Office in that last meeting a few months ago, and it was all Donald this, Donald that. Kind of a bit cringing. I thought,
Mhm.
if I'm honest, but look, maybe that's what's required to get these moments, and a moment it was for sure. We'll talk in a moment about the detail of what this is and what it is not. But first, James, you had, as you say, a front row seat for it all, and you got the first question to Donald Trump after he hung up on the Prime Minister. He didn't hang up on the Prime Minister, after he politely put the phone down on the Prime Minister. I thought naturally your question kind of got to the heart of it.
Can I ask, why Britain and why now? And you've described this deal as a full and comprehensive deal, and yet we've just heard from Mr. Mandelson, it's the end of the beginning. Clearly, there's much more work still to do. Yeah. With respect, are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal because you're a president who needs a result at a difficult time?
I think that it's a great deal for both parties. It's for us. We're opened up. I didn't know how closed it was. Quite closed, the market, as you know, the UK, and it opens up a tremendous market for us, and it works out very well, and a lot of assets. You see the chart, and those are tremendous assets. But we've been trying, and when you say why us, meaning your country, we've been trying for years, and they've been trying for years to make a deal, including when I was in the, first term. It would always be people talking, but they weren't getting it done. But for 25 years before that, they were trying always to make a deal, a very significant deal. I actually, until I looked at the numbers, I didn't realize this is a very conclusive deal, but we think we can grow it even from that. But this is a maxed out deal, not like you said it. You said it really incorrectly. This is a maxed out deal that we're going to make bigger, and we make it bigger through growth.
This has become an issue that has put pressure on him, the time he has taken to put together a trade deal. We saw him last week, particularly, in some testy exchanges with journalists who would rock up to these news conferences, increasingly shortened by the president. And he was asked, where's the trade deal? We ask because that is the evidence of where he is taking this strategy, and that's the measure of success.
Yeah.
But, contrast today, this was the freewheeling Donald Trump in good form, keen to take questions. I mean, this was a news conference that lasted for more than 1 hour. I would take issue with him on the substance of the deal and how significant it is. I get the impression this was very much a rush job amidst the increasing pressure. He wanted a quick result, and Britain was ready and waiting.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. In that room, next to each other, we had the world's greatest at their respective arts. We had the showman, Trump, and we had the spin doctor, Mandelson, Lord Mandelson, the Lord of Darkness, the UK ambassador to the United States now. And in a sense, this deal contains lots of show, and it contains lots of spin. It helps both sides. It's perhaps more show than it is substance, more politically advantageous than it is economically beneficial. Because, as you were saying, Trump kind of needed this right now. And in many ways, it's show because it takes us only back to the status quo before Trump's tariff announcements. Actually, in black and white, Britain remains in a worse position as we are now than it was before Trump became president. So in that sense, this ain't all that great.
Sure. Mark, let's look at what's actually in the agreement. The big concessions from the Trump administration. They'll scrap the 25% tariff on UK steel and aluminium imports. They're also going to immediately cut the rate on most car exports from 27.5% to 10%. Now, that's just for the first 100,000 cars for now that are exported from the UK to the US. In return, the UK government says that beef exports are to be allowed in both directions for the first time. But British officials, they're insisting there will be no weakening of UK food standards to allow that. And something else, ethanol, that's used to make beer, comes into the UK from the US. The tariff on that is going to be scrapped. So maybe, just maybe, the price of a pint could go down. Maybe wishful thinking.
Yeah. It is worth stressing, though, what this was and what it wasn't, because with trademark Trump contradiction, the president said that it was a maxed out deal and then said it was a deal that could be improved on. As we've said, it was a diplomatic political coup for the British. To be first is big. I know from many conversations over the past sort of 2 months that it's been a roller coaster for negotiators. So many times I've heard phrases like, we don't quite know who we're negotiating with. This White House is not a linear operation. The president is his own man. We don't know where he will land. We don't know what his thinking is. And so there has been no guarantee for any of this. But we know that it came suddenly. And so to that end, I do think Mandelson and his team have kind of played this one well. He's a sharp operator, transactional, I guess rather like the president in that respect, a good match despite being politically so unaligned. And as Trump said in his answer to your question, this agreement still seems to be some sort of a work in progress.
Yeah. Pharmaceuticals, Mark. Trump still seems not to be quite sure what he's doing here. If he does end up imposing tariffs on these products, the US says the UK will get preferential treatment, which will be welcome news, clearly. Last year, pharmaceuticals, they were the second largest export from the UK to the United States. On tech firms, something else that's high on the agenda. We know Trump, he's not a fan of Labour's plans to tax and regulate tech firms like Google and Meta. It's a political hot potato for Starmer, who's under pressure from his own party to toughen the UK stance on big tech, especially after the light shone on the issue by the Netflix show Adolescence.
Mhm.
But there was no mention in this from either side today.
No, and on the proposed tariffs of 100% on films made outside the US, that could really impact the UK film industry. Again, Trump was asked about this, and he was kind of like non-committal, sort of joking, throwing it away. He said James Bond has nothing to worry about.
Yeah, spoken like a Bond villain.
Yeah,
But, you know,
without the cat, there was no cat in the White House.
yeah, it
Was there?
was. Yeah, stick around. He's only been in office 3 months. But, you know, there is clearly a lot still to be decided here. It seems both sides saying the agreement will expand in future, but
Mm.
of course, what form that takes is still unclear. There are still some big questions, like what will happen to that 10% baseline tariff on all imports still in place. And of course, chlorinated chicken. Remember that old debate?
Interesting this because I thought that this was an issue that perhaps would be raised as something the Brits would give as a concession, perhaps allow more American chicken that may or may not be chlorinated into the UK. Absolutely not. I saw Peter Mandelson about a week ago, and he said to me words to the effect of, "We will not sign deals at any cost. We are not a pushover," and I think he would probably point to that today. So even if this isn't the fully fledged trade deal, in fact, nowhere near the fully fledged trade deal that the Brits wanted after Brexit, I think what it has done and what it's kind of fast tracked, James, is to establish important relationships and trust between key people, key negotiators on both sides, which I suppose is an important bedrock for future deals down the line.
Okay, speaking of American exports, the Catholic Church has a new pope, and he is an American. Robert Prevost, born in Chicago, from now on to be known as Pope Leo XIV. He was elected on Thursday afternoon in Rome.
Yeah, honestly, it's been a flurry of news today and surprise news that we did not expect. We knew that we would be seeing white smoke at some point from the Vatican, but we didn't expect it at the point it came this afternoon, nor did we expect the Pope to be an American. White smoke, of course, signals the election of the new Pope, and it appeared moments after Trump stopped speaking in the Oval Office, and it caught everyone by surprise.
Yeah, you know, I was standing in the White House. We'd done the news conference, and I turned my head and I could see at the door of the West Wing Tiger Woods, the golfer, emerging. Behind him was Donald Trump. They'd clearly had a meeting, and the president, it was the kind of goodbyes, you know, thanks for coming, see ya. Tiger Woods kind of drifted away. No one else had spotted the president at this point. I walked forward to the hedge and was something like 15 yards away from him. And I said, you know, Mr. President, what do you think of the election of the Pope? And, you know, he said it was a great honor. I hadn't quite started the camera. So I said to him, Sir, would you mind repeating that? So this compliant president walked forward and said,
What greater honor could there be? And we were a little bit surprised, but very happy. It's just a great, absolutely great honor.
Mr. President, do you regret the image of yourself posted on social media dressed as the Pope?
What's next?
There you go. He fixed me with a stare, turned away, and said, "Next question."
Oh,
Wasn't getting an answer on that one.
That's you off to Alcatraz, James.
Yes. Oh, I'll take it. 3 months off. Promise?
Anyway, Trump clearly pleased that he gets to say that the Pope is an American, but it might not be all that straightforward because Pope Leo, as he now is, has been critical of Trump's immigration policies not all that long ago. As is always the case now, when someone gets appointed to a big new job, everyone rushes to X, to their social media, to find out what they might have been saying. And there are a few awkward bits because he retweeted a post not all that long ago that read, there is nothing remotely Christian, American, or morally defensible about a policy that takes children away from their parents and warehouses them in cages. That, of course, in reference to Trump's border policies. He's also directly criticized Vice President J.D. Vance, who, remember himself, is a converted Catholic. In January, Vance told Fox News, quote, there is a Christian concept that you love your family, then you love your neighbor, then you love your community, and then you love your fellow citizens. And after that, you prioritize the rest of the world. Vance went on to say a lot of the far left has completely inverted that. Pope Leo responded back in January on X with the words, Jesus does not ask us to rank our love for others. Cool. So there you go.
Yeah, he's clearly a man who's not afraid to get involved in politics. I wonder if that might have played a role in his selection. An American not scared to stand up to the president, but who might also have a chance of getting through to him. A papal line of communication. Either way, that will be another big day in the Oval Office when the Pope comes to town.
All right, will indeed. Just one more thing before we go, James. I've no idea how he found the time, but between Tiger Woods, Keir Starmer, James Matthews, and all the rest of it, Donald Trump also had a call today with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. We don't have a great deal of detail on what came from the call, but more calls certainly for a 30-day ceasefire. Talks, of course, ongoing. It's another thing to watch in the coming days. There was a point not all that long ago where there was a hope and expectation that maybe there might be a Putin Trump summit sometime soon, perhaps even in Saudi Arabia. Doesn't seem to be the case right now. But all these calls, these calls between Zelensky and Trump and other world leaders are all important things moving fast.
Okay, that's it for today. But as always, we'd love to hear from you. The email is trump100@sky.uk.
And remember, you can always follow the podcast for free wherever you're listening, and you can watch us as well. Just search Trump 100 on YouTube or, of course, on the Sky News app.
But for now, we'll see you on Monday for another day of Trump 100.
Yeah, we will bring you the show from Washington and from the Middle East, where Donald Trump will be throughout next week. Bye-bye for now.